Before the American Revolution, our founding fathers considered themselves slaves of the empire. And then Thomas Jefferson read John Locke. And he said that our freedom was not given us by the king. It was an unalienable right given us by God. It is irrevocable, non-transferable, and unsellable. The founders understood that, and this is why, at the end of the Declaration of Independence, they put, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They said they would die before they'd be slaves. I won't just die before I be a slave. I'll kill before I be one. So all y'all out there to say you have no choice, what the founders showed you. It was Patrick Henry that said, give me liberty or give me death. And on that fateful night when George Washington had to cross the Delaware River in the ice and the snow, or the American Revolution would be lost, they said, General, what are the passwords? He said, victory or death. Either we're successful tonight or we all die. That's the idea of a free man. And I am a free man. So all you out there that believes that someone has to give you your freedom, you're admitting that you're a slave. If you come try to take my freedom away, God has given me the right to defend myself. And I got two things that'll get you off of me. That is Jesus and my 38. Slaves is a choice.
So gallantly streaming. Star-Spangled Banner yet wave o'er the land of the free. And the home of the
Grace and peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. I'm your host, April Chapman. Happy Thursday, you guys. I've missed you so. It's only been a couple of days, but who knew? Who knew that I'd be back tonight? Because fam bam, we've got some stuff to discuss. Don't want to spend too much time shooting the breeze. Let's go ahead and get the housekeeping things out the way. Like this video, shared with your tribe. Tonight's live stream is super important. Many of you have been stalking and paying attention to this case because all of us want to know the truth. I saw somebody in the live chat say, we want the truth of what happened on the 4th. On the 4th of July. No, seriously, we're not making light of what happened to Nolan Wells on the 4th of July, but rather we're actually making fun of the clown show and the mockery that the civil rights apparatus have made of this case. Instead of us mourning a young man and celebrating his amazing and vibrant life and allowing the investigation to run its course so that we can figure out what actually happened. Instead, we've been thoroughly entertained by the educable, mentally retarded civil rights representative, Ben Crump, in this whole situation. So go ahead and like this video. I do want you guys to engage in the live chat. Be respectful, but feel free to disagree. All are welcome here. We are not in an echo chamber. However, if you do come over here with an opposing viewpoint, expect to be challenged. And if you are challenged and you resort to name calling or profane language, our moderators who work so faithfully on this channel will bid you a good night. So with that said, you guys, I've got a lot to get into. I sat and tortured myself and I watched the entire press conference. I watched it on PBS News up in Chicago at the NAACP convention. I wanted to hear what was going to be presented and to determine if we are any further along in this investigation than we were. And unfortunately, Ben Crump held a press conference, and he held it simply to announce that the results of Nolan Wells' independent autopsy was pretty much undetermined, right? So after listening to him, this man drug himself through that report. Y'all, when I say he was struggling, okay, listen, I'm gonna need him to be able to pronounce words such as decomposition. Now, I get it. Now, I'm not an attorney, okay? I'm a college dropout, okay? I don't have a law degree hanging up behind me that I can boast in. But the English language, you would expect an attorney to be able to pronounce basic words such as decomposition. Yeah, and he's struggling to get through it. But he drug himself through that report, and here is the explosive conclusion. Dear ones, the cause of death is undetermined. Not just that, but the manner of death is undetermined. The toxicology results, they are still pending. And this is from the second follow-up autopsy that we are going to dig into tonight. But the original autopsy report has not been released. And what else did we determine from this second autopsy that the civil rights apparatus conducted? Well, we know that there was no skull fracture. They didn't find one. There were no skin lacerations found. And not only that, but the independent pathologist that was retained to conduct this, he did not conclude that Nolan Wells was murdered. So, in other words, Ben Crump, drug folks. I mean, I'm assuming they already had this convention scheduled, but he calls this nationally televised press conference at the NAACP convention to announce that he still don't know what happened. Amidst all of that, somehow, we don't know yet, was translated into something nefarious must have happened. Somebody's hiding something because Mississippi is derelict. And of course, they did not conclude this press conference without a robust roar of justice for Nolan Wells, justice for Nolan Wells. And I sat there and I watched it and I said, justice for what? Like, what has been established? Who has been accused? Like, what evidence proves that Nolan Wells was murdered? Apparently, though, newsflash, I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. We don't need to know any of that anymore. None of that really matters because all we need is Ben Crump. Just give him a microphone, find him a grieving Black family, a super ambiguous medical finding, and a room full of people who are trained to chant on command in Chicago that when a Black man is gunned down every other weekend, nobody has a care in the world or a moment of silence for that. But, they don't get a press conference. But those chants are reserved for those only when a white person is found to maybe be involved. So tonight, you guys, on this show, we're going to spend some time to separate what the independent autopsy actually found from what the racial grievance industry desperately wants you to believe. I've done a deep dive into this, and instead of pulling clips, I have timestamps. So I'm actually going to play from the PBS News channel the timestamps so that we can examine exactly what took place. And then we're going to have, y'all know how I do over here. I don't just cover the news. We've got to dig deep, right? We need a much bigger conversation about why some Black Americans, for a number of reasons, I have some thoughts, but why do they seem so determined to remain psychologically just trapped in what I'm going to call Egypt, but without realizing God has already brought them out of it? They want to go back. They can't seem to get out of Egypt when the Lord is like, I have delivered you. They don't even recognize that the freedoms they get to enjoy, they're still trapped in Egypt. So today, let's go ahead and get ready to respond to the press conference. It was held at the 117th NAACP National Convention, and it had to do with the preliminary findings of this independent autopsy paid for by yours truly, Mr. I loves Daniil, and I'm unemployed, Colin Kaepernick. This is the autopsy on Nolan Xavier Wells. Now, before I begin, I know some of y'all have selective hearing. I want to be clear that Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old young man. From what we have learned from his friends, families, coaches, and colleagues alike, everyone who's known Nolan Wells talks about him in such warm and affirming ways. His family deserves answers. His parents are looking for some transparency. Too bad they're not going to get that running around with the two-bit race hustler and the pulpit pimp with the ultra perm, but conversation for a different day. We need to be honest, though. The circumstances leading up to his death are very ambiguous and unclear, and they should be investigated thoroughly. That's never been up for debate. I want all relevant witnesses. I want them interviewed. I want every legitimate discrepancy. Let's go ahead and examine it. There's nothing wrong with that. I want the toxicology report to be examined. First, can it get completed though? It's not complete yet. But all of the evidence retained by the first medical examiner should be corroborated with what was determined by the second. All of it should be professionally reviewed. And the goal is to establish that was a crime committed. And then if a crime was committed, whoever committed that crime, they should be persecuted to the fullest extent of the law. There's nothing controversial about anything that I just said. But two things can be true at the same time. We all can and should care about Nolan Wells, but here's the problem. It does not, I repeat, it does not require me to surrender my critical thinking skills. I'm not going to do it. Justice does not require us to sit along on the sidelines and manufacture a murderer before the medical examiner has even had an opportunity to establish how did this young man die? Those are two different things. And so let's get prepared to take a look at this autopsy. Give me one quick second to get situated here. There we go. What I want to do is I want to discuss what the autopsy actually found. So first, let me give you guys a little backstory and bring you up to speed before we take a look at this clip. First thing I want to do is let's begin with the facts. We have a second autopsy was conducted by Dr. Roger Mitchell. This individual is highly credentialed. He's an experienced forensic pathologist. He completed his findings on July the 10th. Now, according to the preliminary report, the cause of death was undetermined pending investigation. The manner of death was also undetermined pending investigation. Now, you and I, boys and girls, we're the C students in the room. Remember, I'm black and slow. You might be dark white and slow. I don't know. But we can pay attention to language and understand that undetermined does not mean homicide. Undetermined, it does not mean there's a cover-up. When something is undetermined, it doesn't mean that there's this group of white people somewhere or anywhere that killed Nolan Wells. What undetermined means is that the pathologist, he didn't possess enough evidence to reach a scientifically supportable conclusion. I don't know about you, but by definition, that is not suspicious. That is indicating that we have a limitation here. We need to fact find and get more information. The body, this young man was found days ago. It has undergone significant decomposition. Y'all like how the flow decomposition? Ben Crump, let's say it together. Decomposition. Right? I know it got a lot of syllables and you struggle, but we gonna get you there. But it already determined, based on examining his body, that the decomposition that was sustained during the official autopsy is going to put limitations on the second one. No one is hiding this. Certain structures, certain organs, they've been removed and retained. Why? Further examination is needed. Remember, we have a toxicology report that we're waiting on. So the second pathologist, he doesn't have the original toxicology results. He doesn't have the complete official autopsy findings. All of the investigative information, it is still pending. So naturally, what does this mean? This means there are going to be limits. There are going to be limits in what he could determine. That is why I don't have a problem with the second autopsy. The information garnered from that is valuable, but it's limited. Anyone who, if this is your area of expertise, you already know going into it, you're going to encounter some roadblocks and some limitations. It can document the condition of the body, the way they received it. It can identify, okay, there was an injury here. I think they overlooked that one. All it can do is offer a second professional opinion. It is and should be able and allowed to ask questions. But here's what that second independent autopsy cannot do. I know they want it. They want it to be this, but it can't travel backwards, y'all. It can't go back through time and restore tissue that was altered by decomposition, nor can it go back and try to figure out things and manufacture access to specimens that it doesn't have. Like, if I don't have it, I can't give you a professional conclusion. You guys, this second independent autopsy, it cannot answer investigative questions simply by looking at the body. Be like, yeah, you know what? Them white folks did it. You see that right there? I felt down in my spirit when I looked at that aorta right there. Yeah, that's what I felt. It can't do that. Okay, I'm being funny, and yes, I am invoking some sarcasm and snark and mockery, because when y'all listen, we gonna struggle through it. I don't understand how anybody can listen to this man consistently, like every day, but we're gonna listen to the portion, not the whole press conference, but just the portion of the press conference where Ben Crump is discussing one aspect of the physical findings that he notes in the autopsy. So let me get to the 25-minute and 15-second mark, and we're going to take a look and listen to it. Let's go.
Preliminary report, second autopsy, death of Nolan Xavier Wells. Cause of death, undetermined, pending investigation. And we'll explain that as we go through the report this morning. The manner of death, undetermined, pending investigation. Statement of examination. This forensic pathologist was retained to perform a second autopsy examination on the body of Nolan Xavier Wells. Name of decedent, Nolan Xavier Wells, age 18 years old, race, black, gender, male, date of death, unknown.
Hold on.
Second autopsy date.
I don't know if y'all are able to hear the gasp in the audience when he reads the date of death unknown and then looks at everybody like, oh, this is just horrible, right? Did y'all hear it? I don't know if it was you, but the gasp in the audience is letting you understand, or helping you to understand, the level of, it's a combination of low IQ, and it's another combination of them trusting and being like the blind is leading the blind, right? And I know y'all are like, April, that's really unfair for you to miscategorize all these wonderful, beautiful black people in this conference center or auditorium that way. But the reason why I feel confident in saying that is because we live in the information age. There's just way too much evidence. Like, the track record and the smoke and the receipts on Ben Crump is it's a plethora of information for a thinking person who is sober-minded to be like, there's no way. One, I'm going to sit and listen to this. Two, that I'm going to sit in agreement with it, because this man is a known race hustler and race grifter. But I'm going to let him finish. Let's just let him exegete, if you will, the preliminary findings of this report, and he's struggling through it like his life depends on it, but it's important. Let's let him finish.
Was performed on July 10th, 2026. Preliminary findings. And this is significant. Focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, the occipital region, He said the etiology is unknown at this time. He said the body was received after the initial autopsy. He said the body had marked decompensation.
Flag on the plate.
Ben, it's decomposition, baby. Let's try it again. Let's break it up into word chunks. Decomposition. Decomposition. Have mercy.
He said coronal incision of the scalp, brain removal, Y-shaped incision of the anterior torso, and he talked about the organs being removed as is common.
Somebody meanwhile who don't even know what's going on is gasping and yelping and darn near passing out in the background. I don't know if y'all heard it. He talks about the Y-shaped incision and the organs being removed, and she's interpret that they done desecrated my baby's body. Ma'am, it's an autopsy, okay? They can't get to the bottom of what happened. People do not understand how invasive an autopsy is. Maybe y'all are watching too much SVU where the body is all clean, barely decomposed, and y'all remember your girl? Y'all remember Tam? Well, her real name is Tamara Tooney. This is the medical examiner from SVU, and I pulled this picture because I don't know if in their mind this is what they are expecting to see, and because it's YouTube, I don't want to show a badly decomposed body that's undergoing an autopsy, but the dramatics in the room are just, y'all, we are way too emotional and we are way too gullible. And we have allowed this civil rights apparatus to run such a number on us that I don't even understand how we live and function in the world and have peace, let alone with God or one another, because the race hustling and the racism, I'm convinced that it is leading to some sort of emotional and mental instability. Now, I'm not diagnosing the people in this room, but what you gasping for now? Come on, y'all just being extra for no reason. I'm gonna let them finish.
Accompanied in the body cavity. And that when you have an autopsy, the organs are removed from the body and they're dissected and examined. And then they're put back in a bag within inside the body. So when they're buried, their remains will all be with them. But in this occasion, if there's going to be a second autopsy, then the organs are put in the body cavity so the second pathologist could be able to examine the organs as well.
As inflammatory and provocative as Ben Crump is going to get in other aspects of this review, I at least appreciate the fact that he was trying to calm the people down, as is common. He's trying to tell them, look, this is common. They take the organs out, they put them in a bag. I hate the fact that I got to give him credit for this, but this is what makes Ben Crump so weaselly and deceptive, because there have been plenty of times where he'll lead you to a conclusion, just like Al Sharpton giveth, Al Sharpton taketh away. Ben Crump giveth and Ben Crump taketh away. And it's kind of like this mind game, kind of like the narcissist does with you, where they'll say some true things, but in the next breath, they'll use your emotions and your response, and they'll lead you to an alternate set of facts or an alternate reality. They're kind of leading you in the direction they want to take you. But to be fair here, he was being honest. This wasn't something that needed to be viewed as suspicious. He's going to use other aspects of this for that. But this was not an opportunity or a time when he was using that piece of information as suspicious.
Very significant. for Dr. Mitchell was that
What?
the interior.
What did he just say? How? Jason, how? I can't cuss because I love Jesus, but how did he pass the ball? You don't understand. I have lawyers that are friends, and they have, they give me my little paralegal training every now and again to help me understand how to read motions and briefs, and give me a little crash course in Latin. I don't know how this man passed the bar. Maybe it's just a speech impediment. Maybe he really is. Him is smart. Him is, and I'm I don't know. It's just, it concerns me that this was the man that was labeled the Attorney General of Black America. And I'm like, he can't talk at all. Like, y'all, to be fair, when I talk to y'all and do my show, it's like y'all are sitting here in my living room. We're sipping, we got a glass of wine. We kikiing, cutting it up. So y'all know I'm going to use a double negative here, there, and everywhere. I'm going to say not near one. I'm going to say ain't, ying, got. I'm speaking in my usual comfortable after 5 conversations because we're friends, okay? I'm not going to stand in front of a crowd where I have to read a pathology report and sound as if I barely matriculated out of the 3rd grade. You got to know your audience. Read the room. No matter where Ben Crump goes, he reads and speaks the same way. And it's because it's almost as if he really doesn't know any better. He really can't pronounce these words. So I am questioning the legitimacy of this law degree. Who admitted him to the bar? I needs to know. Who did he pay? Who's looking the other way? I have so many questions.
Inner neck structures were absent, not received with the body. And we'll explain that in just a minute. And then it talks about the additional procedures performed during the 2nd autopsy. And we'll go into the paragraphs on that there because he explains it better in his narrative. So where's the first page of the discussion? Not the diagram yet. Diagram over there. So he talks in the preliminary discussion opinion. This forensic pathologist identified several limitations during the 2nd autopsy that create barriers to establishing a definitive cause and manner of death for Nolan Xavier Wells. And that's important. He talks about the fact that we didn't get to see the body when it was first recovered, like the medical examiner working for Mississippi would have seen.
Y'all see the way he framed that? Here's what he's doing to muddy the waters. He acknowledges that this pathologist is saying, listen, there are some things that are missing that create a barrier that prevent me from giving you a conclusive finding. And then what he says was, and that's important because we didn't get a chance to see the body in the way the Mississippi. So he's creating distrust by saying, the reason why ours is kind of inconclusive. We didn't have access to the body in a reasonable amount of time, the way the state of Mississippi did. This is supposed to cast doubt in your mind and say, well, you know, they had first dibs on the body, as if the conclusion, if they had had it first, a different conclusion would be reached. I am telling you this. I am prematurely saying this entire press conference. Do you think it's an accident that they did this at the NAACP convention? No, it's not an accident. Why? Wouldn't it have made more sense if you are interested in truth and justice for you to refrain from releasing this until the first medical examiner is finished their report and the toxicology and all of the other appendices that are added are all put together, and then y'all sit down, medical examiner 1, medical examiner 2, and whoever else you want in the room, record it if you want to, stream it if you have to, so there can be above board transparency, notes can be shared, and then a determination could happen. They don't want that. Ben Crump is buying time. This is a show. Why are the Wansleys in Chicago when they are from Mississippi? Yeah, these are questions that I have. None of this is coincidental. This is all by design and by accident. It's not done by accident. It's done on purpose. This is orchestrated. All of this is choreographed. It's all a part of what I am calling the 2026 Democrat election interference strategy. They've got multiple ones going on at the same time. They got one up in Wisconsin where some police officers shot somebody because he had a knife and he tried to stab. It's a mess. The Black Lives Matter is already on the scene acting a fool. This is no different. I'm gonna let them finish. This is probably the longest clip, and then I'm gonna go and show you guys some more. We got about 2 minutes left there.
He talked about the second autopsy performed on Nolan Wells revealed marked decompensation or changes.
Did he say decompensation? Sir, what is decompensation? Are we taking money from someone? Decomposition. Did he say decompensation? Why is this man struggling to read this basic word? He's going to struggle to say subcutaneous. He probably don't even know what subcutaneous means. Lord forbid if they had typed out epidermis. He wouldn't know what to do with that.
Compensation can obscure the presence and absence of bruising on the skin surface, especially during a second autopsy examination. What he's saying, because the body was so decomposed that you couldn't tell if there was bruises or abrasions on the body when he received it on the 10th of July. For these reasons, additional dissection procedures not performed during the first autopsy examination were performed to rule out potential blunt force injuries responsible for the death. These procedures included facial dissection, posterior head and neck dissection, dissection of the ribs, the pelvic, dissection of the subcutaneous and deep soft tissue, dissection of the back, the buttocks, the arms and legs. He did all of this to rule out things. He ruled out there were no fractures or deep tissue injuries identified. This was very important because he wanted to be very thorough and very transparent, because transparency is the key to getting to the answers of why Nolan Wells is not with us. So he did that there and was very straightforward, very open, very open. He says, however, dissection of the back of the head during the layered posterior neck dissection revealed a 12 by 8-inch focal area of red discoloration in the deep soft tissues overlaying the occipital bone. And
they highlighting this part.
he talked about how he found red discoloration when he cut open into the back of his head towards the occipital bone, and he saw the red discoloration, and we actually saw the pictures of it. It's significant. You can't help but notice, why is this dark red here in the back of his head? And so he was important to note that in his report.
Okay, I'm gonna grab these super chats, and y'all are like the goats because y'all sat and struggled and listened through it. And let me just give y'all a round of applause. Shout out to Crimson. She said, "Greetings, beautiful. I absolutely love that intro. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you love it. Sometimes it's hard for me to just pop on camera. I need to first I gotta calm my nerves. I know it's hard to believe, but I get nervous every show I do. So I need a minute to sit in this chair, slow my breathing down, and then come on. So I'm sorry, I need a countdown. I just do. But thank you. Darth Cater said cause of death. Undetermined. Thank you, beautiful, so much for that super chat. Yes, the cause of death, DEAF, is undetermined. I appreciate your generosity, and I'm so glad you stopped by here to hang out with us tonight. We're going to have a good time, and yes, we are clowning. We are clowning the poor diction and the inability of this law school graduate and barred attorney to pronounce basic English words that a fifth grader can actually read with ease. What happened? Hey, girly. Hey, Jacinta. She says, ain't no way. Boy, ain't no way. Ain't no way he passed the bar. Crump is a useful idiot who looks, sounds like, and can relate to the very people he is swindling. Look at the baby shaker involved. In the Anthony case, same thing. Yes, both. They always find themselves the useful, morally compromised, shape-shifting, they find the worst ones. And it's probably because those are the ones that are willing to do something strange for some change. You give them a bottle of liquor and a pork chop sandwich, and you can get them to do almost anything. So, yes, I agree. You are so right. Thank you so much for your super chat and for supporting the show tonight. I can prep too. Looks like we got a prepper. Thank you so much for your super chat. Looks like you are from Canada. Thanks for joining us over here this side of the pond. I can prep too says, while a few might be taking this BS and rolling with it, I have honestly been quite glad to see discernment return to society and just how many people are calling out the grift. This is why, y'all, we can't stop. We won't stop. We cannot allow this foolishness to just proliferate over the airwaves unchallenged. And that's why I do what I do. So let's go ahead and discuss Counselor Crump's the physical findings that he highlighted here in this report. So according to the report, there were no lacerations of the skin. Lacerations is a fancy word for like a cut, right? Just a piercing into that subcutaneous epidermis layer. Oh, look at them fancy words I'm using. Yes, there were no lacerations to the skin, no fractures to Nolan Wells' skull. Essentially, there were no significant deep tissue injuries identified. However, notice how they wanted to bring the pictures of the large area of red discoloration in the back of the soft tissue of Nolan's head. Now, let's be fair. That discoloration deserves examination, but the body's decomposed, okay? So because of the decomposition, the second pathologist is identifying it and saying, okay, this is what I am seeing, but I can't conclusively determine whether it represented bruising, if this is a post-mortem change, pressure, blood pooling in the area, some other process, I don't know. So what does Ben Crump do? He does what he does best. He goes and he tells the audience, you know, we saw pictures of it, and you know, it's significant. And I'm like, great, okay, significant how, Mr. Crump? Maybe you should expound on that. Is it significantly medically? Significantly, is it significant legally? Why is this significant? Because the forensic pathologist, has he reached a conclusion about it? I don't think he did. Or, let me guess, is it significant because you know that the word discoloration, it sounds real suspicious, and it adds a little extra lorries to the dish that you cooking up here. If you deliver this discoloration in a real suspicious tone when it's delivered, you can be real dramatic with it. And then I'm like, you're talking about the discoloration and how suspicious it is as you slow your speech and struggle through reading these basic words such as decomposition. Y'all, Ben Crump's an attorney. I know that's hard to believe, but hey, according to him, it's true. My question stands. Why is he, of all people, who picked him to read this? Who said, you know what? Here's what we gonna do. This is the game-changing chess move they ain't gonna see coming. We gonna let Ben read the report. Right? Like, whose idea was this? He's not a forensic pathologist. He doesn't even know what he's reading. He's not a medical examiner. He didn't perform the autopsy. Like, why isn't a professional who is well-versed in this and who can properly exegete this report, why are they not the ones presenting this to the community? Why not? And then saying, you know, well, we have seen the pictures. That does not magically transform him into, like I said, Dr. Melinda Warner from Law and Order SVU. You don't have the white coat, Ben. You don't have the white coat. Father help. All right, y'all, I'm queuing up the next clip. Let me just get these timestamps. This is about a 3-minute clip. Let me get to the 33, where we at? 33:23. We got to struggle through some more, but y'all are doing good, boys and girls. Y'all are doing great. Let's get into it.
So he's saying that the throat was not received with the body when he got Nolan Wells' body in Washington, D.C. to perform the second autopsy. And so let's discuss that with what he said about that. He said, it is assumed that the initial pathologist retained these structures for additional evaluation. He said the retention of the anterior neck structures during an initial autopsy is a common forensic pathology practice. He was chief medical examiner for 7 years in Washington, D.C. And he said that if they had concern about throat or any fracture or compression of the throat, they too will hold them back. He doesn't know why they held the throat back, but he said the throat was not with the body of Nolan Wells when he received it in Washington, D.C. to perform the second autopsy. He said, nevertheless, a posterior neck dissection performed without review of the anterior neck structures is incomplete. Therefore, this pathologist cannot rule out injury to the neck as a contributor or a cause of death. He said he would need to have the medical examiner in Mississippi allow him to review the throat. That's why he said his autopsy is undetermined pending investigation. Remember, it's about transparency.
So, of course, they got to indict and cast an aspersion and put a cloud of doubt and an odor of mendacity against the Mississippi medical examiner, because this is not gaslight. What's the other one? It's a manipulation tactic. The blame shifting, because he has said he can't finish and make a determinant of his report until he get the throat back. So, they holding the throat. Y'all, listen. I saw somebody mention, I'm going to get some more super chats. This is all done on purpose. They have to cast aspersions and cause or drum up enough distrust. They don't have to tell you to distrust the medical examiner in Mississippi. All they have to do is throw out the seeds and the crumbs, and it will lead you to the conclusion that they want you to believe. Somebody here in the super chat, Smetty said, he's an installation. I agree. He needs to appear like an unfed puppy. Used to be Where's Waldo. Now it's Where's Crump. Coming soon to a theater near you. Thank you so much for your contribution tonight. Then we got Support Our Shield. Beware of narcissists. Yes, look, I can write a book, okay? I'm an empath, and that's a conversation for another day. It is. Shay Rue, thank you so much for your super chat. You are doing such great work. Oh, thank you, Shay Rue. I'm really passionate about these topics, and I can't stand to see the vulnerable or the ignorant taken advantage of. Like, I always feel like my dad was always the champion for the underdog, and it's just a part of my personality. So thank you for acknowledging that. And then my girl Ruth, hey, beautiful. She said, now, April, Crump was in that special class where you had to use the ruler to follow the word. He is embarrassing. Girl, this is worse than that. This was short bus special class where it was only like a class of 8. That's Ben Crump. He was on the short bus, separated from the rest of the population, and they all just traveled together from class to class. Yeah, that's Crumpy. Let's get back to this, though. The reason why the discussion about the missing organs, what he wants to talk about that, and I noticed that he emphasized the throat structures and certain organs, how they weren't received with the body for the second examination. But in the very same presentation, he acknowledges that this is common for organs and tissue to be removed and held back or retained during an autopsy. Why? Especially when you have additional testing or they're trying to dig deeper because transparency and they want to get to the bottom of what happened. All you got to do, read it slowly. This is a common practice. But this rhetorical mind game that he is playing with the listening audience, it's such nasty work, because Ben Crump knows that the specimens may have been retained for testing, because they've already said the toxicology report hasn't come back. The official autopsy is not complete. Yet the word missing, he repeated it over and over again. It's a form of hypnosis almost. And he's repeating it and presenting it with all of the dramatic energy of a Dateline special, right? The implication here is, well, where is the throat? Well, why are they hiding the throat? Well, what happened to the stomach? Those are the questions you're supposed to ask. Well, what does Mississippi not want us to know? He's trying to lead you to the conclusion when we already know the first medical examiner, they are retaining these structures because examining them is part of their job, right? Like, it's almost like you getting some work done on your car and you show up to the mechanic while he's still examining the engine, and you see the spark plugs and it's sitting, all of it spread out on the workbench, and then you come in there hollering, talking about, well, why were components missing from the vehicle? Dodo head, it's because he's working on the car. It doesn't prove that the mechanic is sabotaging the car. He's working in the same way. The fact that the second pathologist didn't receive particular structures, it limits his examination. But that by itself doesn't prove that anyone concealed or destroyed or is purposely, you know what, we're going to send that boy up to D.C. with no throat. Because you know the dead speak, they say. Right? They're going to send him up there with no throat. They don't want the corpse talking. Right? Come on. The implication here, they want you to think that something was concealed or destroyed or improperly removed. But could a closer review reveal problems? Possibly, yeah. I mean, should the retained tissue and all the photographs be shared with the second pathologist, Dr. Mitchell? Absolutely. But we can't jump from the second pathologist didn't get the throat structures to, well, you know, somebody must be hiding evidence of strangulation. You know they choked that boy and they don't want us to know about it. They beat him on the back of the head and they choked him. That's why they ain't send the throat, and that's why he had that spot on the back of his head. This is the bridge that they're trying to build. All Ben Crump did was simply invite the audience to jump across the canyon and hope that racial grievance would catch them. Nasty work. Talented, but nasty work. Let me get to this other timestamp. I got to get to the 41-minute mark. This is 41 minute. There we go. All right, you guys, let's go.
Questions still outstanding.
He said 7 questions.
Number 1, what were the circumstances that led to Nolan Xavier Wells entering the water? Number 2, what was the body position when it was found? We know that a member of the United Cajun Navy said that he was face down and he was fully clothed. Number 3, was there water in the airway? Remember, he talked about the lungs and the airways where they fill with water. Number 4, is there any evidence of injuries to the anterior neck structure? We got the autopsy without his neck. We got the body without his neck at the time of the second autopsy. Number 5, is there any evidence of any intracranial hemorrhage? He said that is going to be very significant. Things that he could not observe at autopsy that the initial medical examiner would have been able to observe. Number 6, was the composition of what was the composition of the stomach contents? He talks about that being important because when was he found? How long had he been in the water? How long had it been since his last meal? All those things become relevant factors when you're trying to do a thorough and impartial autopsy. And number 7, what are the toxicology report findings? He said the best classification again for the cause and manner of death for Nolan Xavier Wells is undetermined pending investigation. This forensic pathologist reserves the right to review and incorporate additional forensic pathology information into his opinion as it becomes available. He says, the above opinions are expressed to a reasonable degree of medical certainty.
All right. So, it's the 7 questions that the independent pathologist is saying that are very, very important that he cannot answer, right? So his thing is, look, how Nolan get in the water? Like, what were the circumstances that led to him entering the water? What position was his body found in when they discovered him? Was there water in his airways? Was there evidence of injury to the front of his neck? What about that area in the back? Was there any bleeding around the brain? And then he talked about the content of his stomach and what does the toxicology report show? All of those are legitimate questions, but I'm not sure if you guys were listening very, very carefully. The way Ben Crump frames them, I mean, most of these are not accusations, right? They're just requests for information. They're asking whether or not is water present in the airway. We can ask that question, but asking that question, it doesn't prove that he drowned or that it was a homicide, right? Asking whether the neck structures were injured, it doesn't establish strangulation, right? Asking what was in his stomach doesn't establish that somebody poisoned him. Asking what the toxicology report reveals doesn't establish that somebody drugged Nolan. These are all differential questions. They represent a myriad of possibilities that, yes, we should examine before you reach a conclusion. But when you take these types of questions that came from a professional that seems to know what he's talking about, and you put them in the hands of a narrative merchant like Ben Crump, every unanswered question becomes a leading question. Could he been struck? Did somebody beat him across the head? Or what about, did they choke him out? You know, white folks like to choke you out, right? Could someone may have forced him into the water against his will? Could people be lying? Right. Yes. He could also drown accidentally. He could have slipped and fell. We don't know. We've heard a myriad of individuals say, look, everybody was drinking. Alcohol was involved. Maybe another substance we don't know, could have affected his judgment or his hand-eye coordination or his physical ability to react. There could be a medical explanation. Yes, there could be accidental consequential events that we are not privy to, that nobody witnessed fully. Wrongdoing, that's not been discovered. All of these possibilities remain just that. They're possibilities. But Ben Crump, he only knows how to emphasize the possibilities that support the brand. Now, there's another claim that he mentioned the Cajun Navy. I need to go back to the beginning. I want to go to the 19-minute and 19-second mark. And I want you guys to hear this. This is the false claim about the clothing.
There are local officials that Nolan was found face down, fully clothed. Well, that's significant to us because the last time we saw him on the videos, he was without a shirt. So at what point did he put on a shirt? Somebody saw something. Somebody knows something. There were almost 300, 400 people. Somebody knows something.
I'm so tired. So while Ben Crump is supposedly demanding truth and transparency, we've heard testimony from the United Cajun Navy. They've accused Ben Crump of misrepresenting what they said about the condition of Nolan's body. So during this press conference, Crump is claiming that Nolan's parents had been told that their son was found face down and fully clothed. Now that matters because there are photographs reportedly showing that Nolan was without a shirt on the island. So if Nolan disappeared shirtless but was then discovered wearing a shirt, that could be an important discrepancy. There's only one small problem with that though. I want you guys to listen to this clip right here.
Cajun Navy, Brian Trasher, Vice President, United Cajun Navy. The Navy participated in the search, and I got to clear up that whole thing about fully clothed with you. That said, isn't it true? And I'm looking at the picture on my phone that I got from an undisclosed source. I'm looking at Nolan's body on the beach. We are not showing it. He's face down, isn't he?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, he was when we flew
Okay, I'm
over.
going to come back to you about the clothing.
Yeah.
What? Repeat?
No, I said when we observed him from the air, yeah, he was face down and he was wearing swim trunks and only swim trunks. I think that the term fully clothed just got taken out of context.
Well, when you look at the body from high up, it appears at first like he had on a shirt with swim trunks, but he does not have on a shirt. He only has on swim trunks. That's a whole peripheral issue. Brian Trasher, Vice President, United.
All right. I wanted you guys to see that. That was the United Cajun Navy. They're saying he was wearing swim trunks, not fully clothed, but that could be interpreted like, well, he had his clothes on, like he wasn't indecent, he wasn't naked, right? They, or somehow, the parents weren't told this, or they were told something else. But specifically, Ben Crump publicly said he was, at first, he's trying to draw or cast some sort of doubt, like, well, which was it? Was he fully clothed? Did he not have a shirt on? And the United Cajun Navy has gone on record saying, listen, do not misrepresent our words, right? I'm trying to understand. Like, you can't hold a press conference accusing everybody else of withholding facts while you're inserting an unverified shirt into the story. Just like Ben Crump is guilty of sharing other social media posts that were debunked, but it didn't stop him from sharing it anyway and not verifying it first. Ben Crump found a missing throat and a whole imaginary shirt all on the same day. I mean, that's quite a forensic accomplishment from an attorney who can't speak or read properly. But this is precisely why we do not build conclusions from press conference rhetoric. Facts should be verified. You should source your statements because your words matter. Evidence matters. Now, I know the truth don't matter to these people, but truth matters even when the truth doesn't cooperate with the narrative that you are trying to spin. Now, I have another clip from this press conference. Y'all, this one is really disgusting. Let me go back. I know we're jumping all around, but I want you guys to hear it in your own words. In his own words. There we go.
When our children's lives are at stake, it matters. Not just what happened, but what we do in the aftermath of them being taken away from us. And just like the NAACP stood up when another tragedy in Mississippi taking the life of young Emmett Till, we will stand up for Nolan Wells. Just like the NAACP and civil rights leaders stood up when another Mississippi son was taken in Medgar Evers. We will stand up for Nolan Wells. And just like too many of our young people, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Botham Jean, Terrence Crutcher, Stephon Clark, Sandra Bland, Atiana Jefferson, Sterling Alton Sterling, Eric Gardner, George Floyd, Tamir Rice, the young people who I was trying to focus on. Gary, we stand up until we get the truth, until we get justice for Nolan Wells. 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 We were asked, yeah, Christine.
All right, y'all. The reason why I played that, this press conference, it shifts from Ben Crump presenting the preliminary findings. It kind of shifts to something else, right? I showed this, I want to see if that super chat, someone mentioned this. The audience is very old civil rights folks. They are focused on the missing organs in the bag. Thank you for that insightful comment, Sarah Kelly. And I appreciate you bringing that up. And I'm glad you brought it up because the way Ben Crump is trying to get this chant going, it's resembling like this whole racial revival meeting. Ben Crump starts rattling off all of the familiar names of all of the vast majority, not all, were his fake race hoax. I call it the Hall of Fame of race hoaxes. That is a tongue twister. He's mentioning all these recognizable tragedies. These are what we call his racial martyrs, the controversial deaths. This is like a whole social justice playlist. And the audience, they knew the part that they were supposed to play. They were supposed to clap, right? They know what to do. Clap, give agreement, say amen. They know what to do. And then came the chant. Justice for Nolan Wells. Justice for Nolan Wells. I'm like, okay. Y'all started this. So let's go there. I want to ask the uncomfortable question. Everybody's not going to like this, and I really don't care, but justice for what? Do not misunderstand me. I'm not asking whether Nolan's life mattered. I am a Christian. I believe that all image bearers are made in the image of God, and their lives mattered. It absolutely did. Nolan's life mattered. But I'm not asking whether his parents deserve answers. Yes, they absolutely do. Here's what I am asking. What specific injustice has been established? Can anybody? Right, like who has been shown to have committed the injustice? What evidence proves it? Shouting about justice is not a predetermined outcome. Justice is a process that's rooted in truth. Yes, can justice reveal criminal wrongdoing? It can, and it also could reveal negligence. Justice could reveal that the witnesses withheld information, but justice could also reveal that Nolan Wells died accidentally. If you're genuinely committed to justice, you must be prepared to accept, which I don't believe this crowd will, whatever conclusion the complete evidence supports. And they don't have a track record of doing so. We saw the situation with Trey Reed. Oh, they wanted that black boy to have been lynched by an angry white mob. And they did their own independent autopsy. Did they ever reveal the results of that? No, they did, press conference, all the big to do, it just went away. You heard Nothing. So don't talk to me about justice for Nolan Wells if you are not going to be prepared to deal with the truth, whichever way it goes. You don't want justice. You want a narrative confirmation. This crowd was being emotionally prepared that entire time to reject any conclusion that doesn't produce a villain. Okay, like if the official autopsy finds no evidence of assault, no evidence of foul play, you know what they're going to do? They're going to say that the medical examiner is corrupt. That's how crazy these people are. That's how bloodthirsty they are. If the toxicology reveals alcohol or another substance, they're going to say, well, you know, him must have been drugged. I'm telling you, that's the way this is going to go. If investigators find no probable cause, they will say, because this is Mississippi, Mississippi doesn't care about black people. You can't get justice in Mississippi. That is the narrative that they are prepping and priming you for. If a grand jury declines to indict anyone, they're just going to say the system is rigged. It is rigged, and it is rigged to protect white suspects. The conclusion has already been written. It's already been written. They're just waiting. They're waiting for evidence to audition for a role in their movie. That's what they're doing. You know what? Speaking of a movie, when I sat and I watched Ben Crump and all this sea of black folks, this reminds me of the movie Rosewood. Type Rosewood in the chat if you remember the story in the movie that is depicted in that movie. When I sat and watched this, I was like, this is just like the movie Rosewood, but in blackface. Y'all remember in the film, the little poor white trash girl with the greasy hair, Fannie Taylor, she is cheating on her husband with a local white man. This man is beating the brakes off of her. But because she needs to explain her injuries to her husband, she claims that a big old black man attacked her. He was big and he was black. And her husband is like, okay, that one lie unleashes hell and fury on the whole daggone town. You have this town of enterprising and just good old Christian black folks, got their own school, got their own church. They're doing business and commerce with the local merchant, the little white man at the store. Ain't got no problems in Rosewood. But because Fanny's a lie, you got an angry white mob. They all of a sudden, they're hunting for a big old black man, a fugitive allegedly named Jesse Hunter. Everybody looking for Jesse, right? All of the residents, they're questioning all the residents of Rosewood. Oh, they are threatening these people. You know Jesse Hunter. They torture these people. They kill a lot of them. And it doesn't matter how many black residents say, look, who is Jesse Hunter? This town ain't but 5 seconds big. I don't know Jesse Hunter. I didn't see anybody. I don't even know what y'all are talking about. Did that matter? No. That mob had already decided that the mysterious black boogeyman must exist. Now, they don't have the man. They can't identify what he looks like. They don't even have a description of the man. They have no credible evidence. They don't even have a consistent story. But you know what they do have? They have an accusation. They have a preconceived racial suspicion and an angry mob-like crowd willing to believe it because instead of focusing on what's going on in the moment and paying attention to the context clues, they are focusing on looking for Jesse Hunter. It's the same thing today. This is Rosewood in blackface. They want for this young man to have succumbed to his final resting place at the hands of some white boys. Instead of us focusing on where we are today and looking at all the healing that has taken place despite our past, These people don't want to accept the healing that has already happened. They don't want to be made whole. Nah, they don't want to be made whole. They want to sit, just like the story in the New Testament, they want to sit by the pool of Bethesda and complain about not being, they figured out how to get into the water. I am telling you, this Nolan Wells story sounds very familiar. It is Rosewood in blackface. Just think about it. You got Aunt Sarah, right? Aunt Sarah knows that Fanny is lying. She saw it when it happened, told the other little young girl, don't say nothing. You ain't see something. You don't know nothing. Nolan's friends, the boating community, the investigators, in my opinion, they know that Ben Crump is a lying, trifling Negro that can't be trusted. Just like in the movie, Aunt Sarah knows the man who beat Fanny. She knows that man was white. But when she finally musters up the courage to tell the mob the truth, do you know what happened to her? They shot Aunt Sarah, just shot her in cold blood. Think about that. In the movie, the truth could have stopped the lie. But by then, the mob, they weren't interested in the truth anymore. They wanted blood. The mob needed Jesse Hunter to exist. They needed him to be real. Without Jesse Hunter, they would have had to confront the possibility that they had terrorized innocent people over a lying chick with greasy hair. And I see a very disturbing parallel here in what the civil rights apparatus is now attempting to do down there in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. I want to be very precise about this. I'm not equating social pressure with the physical massacre at Rosewood. I'm simply comparing, there is an underlying mob mentality. All of this presumption of guilt, the racial scapegoating. They just want to punish anybody who interrupts the preferred narrative. Before the investigation's even complete, we don't have a toxicology report that's complete. Before the independent pathologist, he can't even review all the retained tissues and fact find and compare notes with the first investigation. The activists, they're already behaving as though there must be a villain. These people want blood. Somebody must have harmed Nolan. Somebody choked him out. Somebody must be lying. Them folks down there in Ocean Springs, they must know something. The white friends, well, you know, they suspicious just because they white. All of the associates must be suspicious. The investigators, you can't trust them, suspicious. Medical examiner, he must be suspicious too. So if the entire town refuses to produce the racial villain that these activists demand, then apparently the entire town must be suspicious. It's a conspiracy. They are looking for their Jesse Hunter. I know y'all see it. But here's my question to y'all. What happens if Jesse Hunter doesn't exist? What we gonna do? What happens if the final evidence shows that Nolan Wells drowned? What happens if there was no racial conspiracy? There's no murder. There's no cover-up. You think these activists are gonna apologize to the people that they implicated? No. They're not going to apologize. No. Do you think Ben Crump is going to return to the NAACP convention and tell that same crowd, we was wrong? We've concluded the investigation and the evidence does not support the narrative that we continue to encourage you to believe. Will everybody who shouted justice for Nolan accept that justice may confirm an accidental drowning? These are the questions I have. Or will someone who states the evidence, are they going to treat her like Aunt Sarah and socially punish her for telling the mob what it refuses to hear? No. This doesn't have anything to do with Nolan. Look, y'all don't have to like this. And I'm sorry if you don't have the spiritual eyes to see what I see, but these darn Democrats are trying to tighten their grip on the black vote. That's what all of this is about. Too many blacks have jumped ship. They have abandoned the plantation. They've cut the chains. They are booking it and they have run and they are not looking back. And this is their 2026 midterm election interference strategy. You think this is just one of many tactics that they use. This is where we are now. They have to socially lynch this community and keep this clown show going. They are buying their time. Y'all, they don't have to use ropes and torches and go on a horse ride in the middle of the night to find their Jesse Hunter, but they sure know how to conduct a social lynching. They know how to destroy reputations and threaten your livelihood. They know how to smear an entire community because they learn, these blacks, I told you they ain't honest, they learned this Jerome Crow tactic from their Jim Crow KKK ancestors. It's the same darn tactic. They learned this from their former masters. You know, they spent so much time around them and you couldn't pry them away from them. No, you could have had a crowbar and they wouldn't leave. This is the play. I don't care if you are offended by that. They can accuse innocent people of participating in a racial cover-up without producing an ounce of evidence. No racial crime has occurred. No evidence has pointed to that. And if you're somebody that says, listen, I think we should just kind of pause, take a step back, let's wait a minute, right? The evidence presently indicates that a boy might have drowned. Can we let the investigation finish? If you're that person, immediately, if you're the person saying that, you've now become an enemy of justice. It ain't biblical justice, though. You're an enemy of the social justice cause. That is how the Jim Crow, Jerome Crow logic works. It's Jerome Crow, Jim Crow in blackface. It's the same mob mentality, different branding. Jim Crow in blackface. That's why I call it Jerome Crow. Instead of beginning with the evidence and reaching a conclusion, Jerome Crow begins with the racial conclusion, and then it bullies everybody until somebody's going to supply that evidence, or at least a rumor that sounds close enough to believe. Right? In the Rosewood story, the lynch mob said a black man must have done it. That's what they said. The mob grievance, they say, the grievance mob of the pro-wokey woke blackity black, a white person must have done it. Both of these begin with race. They both come with the layer and the baggage of presumed guilt. They both demand you have to conform. This is the approved narrative. And if you are a dissenter, both punish dissent. Y'all remember the little white shopkeeper who, look, he was like, these blacks make me a lot of money and they never gave me no problems. Why y'all want to start this drama? Jesse Hunter, ain't nobody seen nobody named Jesse Hunter, right? They were willing to punish and burn down that white man's house that came after his wife and his kids. And he was white, all because he dead was like, look, why y'all over there messing with Aunt Sarah? Aunt Sarah ain't bothered nobody. Now y'all done shot her, y'all done put her in this box. What is wrong with y'all? Both of the Jim Crow and Jerome Crow mobs, neither one deserved to use the word justice. Neither one. Proverbs tells us if one gives an answer before he hears it, it is folly and shame. In the movie Rosewood, the Rosewood mob, they answered before they heard it. They went and got their guns and their ropes and got on that horseback and they was riding out, right? Because all Fanny had to do was just say it. She was so dramotional with it. Oh, he was so big. And he was so strong. And they're like, oh my God, Fanny, somebody get her some water. Like, it was all of the dramatics. All of the dramatics. All she had to do was just say it. Everybody else judged before. Had they investigated? No. And by the time that the truth emerged, so many innocent people were already dead. That whole entire community got destroyed. That is precisely why we don't allow mobs, white mobs or black mobs or political mobs or civil rights mobs, to determine facts. We don't do that. Truth doesn't change according to the racial group that's holding the pitchfork, right? Just like the angry little white mob, they thought they were pursuing truth and righteousness. In the same way, these civil rights hustlers, the race-baiting operatives, they also think that they're pursuing truth and righteousness. The only problem is their facts and their standard of truth, it's not objective. It's clouded and full of racial animus. It's tainted with a slanted racial narrative. There are no facts. There's no evidence to support this narrative. And so instead of being in a pursuit of justice and being in a pursuit of truth and righteousness, you end up with injustice. Injustice doesn't just miraculously become justice simply because the mob has changed costumes. It still is not right. Let me just show y'all. This is the audience. This is the freeze shot when Ben Crump is telling them justice for Nolan Wells. Justice for Nolan Wells. This that Jerome Crow mob looking for their Jesse Hunter. Anybody seen Jesse? Anybody seen Jesse? Yeah, I ain't seen Jesse either. It's okay. Listen, I'm about to wrap it up in a little bit. What we just witnessed with this Ben Crump press conference, it wasn't simply a press conference. This is what I'm going to call a racial liturgy, right? First, you got to invoke the history of slavery and segregation. And he even brought up, look how far back he had to go. He had to bring up Emmett Till and Medgar Evers. He connected the present case, Nolan Wells, to this list of familiar Black deaths. You got Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. I mean, he went down the list. He got a pretty impressive list. It doesn't matter, right? Forget the fact that the list of the Black deaths, probably 98% of them are just mired in falsehood and race hoaxes themselves. But, we can examine them case by case. But third, what he did was he treated every unanswered question as if the evidence pointed to institutional racism. And we don't even have any evidence. But he just alludes to it and infers and implies. Fourth thing he does, he parades, and I'm using this word, they're not victims because they're allowing themselves, but he's introducing this grieving family. That part is important. The way they hold her hand and rub her back and give her the stage to let her cry, and it's sick. But they're active participants at this point. And then after they introduce the grieving family, they got to rile up the audience, right? Make them chant. Make them chant and repeat the incantation. Make them clap too. Whatever it takes, the more the merrier. Justice for Nolan Wells, right? Justice for Nolan Wells. They're demanding justice before having established an injustice. It's amazing how they do that. And then finally, let me show it to you again. You see this? They position, look. These people here are all assembled, and you have the illiterate and ignorant activist attorney, who I don't understand how none of the people in this room know, whose reputation, this man's reputation precedes him. He is known as being the race-baiting, lying, hustling, ambulance-chasing attorney who can't talk, read, or probably write well. I don't know. He is the indispensable intermediary between, as Al Sharpton says, Black people in America and truth. He's the go-between. Y'all remember, Al Sharpton said that Ben Crump's the Attorney General of Black America. They do this all the time. It happens over and over again. The names change, the cities change, the facts change, but the script remains the same. You must always have a victim. There must always be a racial villain. There must always be, you got to have a corrupt institution, and there's always going to be a Ben Crump or an Al Sharpton or a Jamal Bryant to stand in front of the cameras, and they're the ones responsible for translating your pain and turning it into political theater. This is what the Democrats pay them for. That's what they're paid to do. These men can't afford. They cannot afford for Black people to examine every case on its own merit. Just look at things independently. They can't have that. They need your reflexes conditioned. They need to be able to say Mississippi and you hear lynching. And then it echoes, lynching, lynching, lynching. And you're looking around suspicious and scared, right? They need that. They need to say the words young Black man. And you hear, when it goes in here and it comes out this way, you hear murdered by white people. That's what they need you to hear. They know the buzzwords to say, and they know how it's going to be translated back to them. But they need to say the words, what is it? Undetermined, as it relates to the manner and cause of death. And they need you to hear cover up, right? They say justice, and you start chanting before you don't even know what happened. You just like a lemming. You just going along with it. This is the conditioning. This is the conditioning. Earlier today, before I wrap this up and go, I was on John Amachukwu's show. Virgil was filling in for him. Virgil Walker. Shout out to the big homie Virgil. Virgil was filling in for John Amachukwu today. And on there, I explained that as I was watching this press conference, I thought about the children of Israel. And when you think about the story in Exodus, God delivers Israel from the hand of Egypt. And I can't even imagine being alive back then. Like all of these miraculous signs and wonders, like God struck Egypt with a boatload of plagues. Before they even left, the plagues came. Yahweh, the God of the Bible, parts the Red Sea. Have you ever seen a sea? The waters parted. These people walked on dry land, and he destroys Pharaoh's army that's pursuing them, right? The scriptures say, and the sea covered them, right? And it says like they sank like lead in the mighty waters. The Egyptian empire, the army, the strong arm of the region of that time, whole army gets covered in the sea. Yahweh, by his mighty hand, led his people by a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Can you imagine? We've been enslaved for 111 years, and all of a sudden, we just leave. And we walk through a sea with waters, dry land, The army's behind us. The sea covers them. It's daytime, and we have this pillar of cloud. And at night, we have fire. It gets better. He fed them manna from heaven. Literally, manna is, what is this? Like, it ain't really bread, but not really. Who cares? We still don't know what this substance was, but it was sustenance and nourishment that the children of Israel needed to survive. Yahweh brought water out of a rock, okay? Yet after all of that, Israel, you know what they wanted? These ungrateful jokers started longing for Egypt. Can you believe that, y'all? I was like, how can you be so ungrateful? Let me read y'all Numbers 11, 5 through 6. It says, we remember the fish we ate in Egypt that cost nothing. Oh, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our strength is dried up, and there is nothing at all but this manna to look at. Let me tell you something. If I was God, I'd be like, I'm about to kill them all. Just kill them all. Like, I'm done. Right? Nothing left but this manna to look at. How ungrateful and entitled do you have to be? They are reminiscing about the food back in Egypt, not even realizing that the food didn't cost them nothing. At least they thought it cost them nothing. They paid for it with their labor. They paid for it with their liberty. They were slaves. They paid for it with their dignity. They paid for it with the blood of their sons. But it's interesting because the bondage that they were in has so distorted their memories that these nut jobs were thinking that slavery felt safer than freedom. Why is that? You know why? Egypt was familiar, right? But now they're out and they're free. That freedom is uncertain. The comforts of slavery in Egypt gave them a predictable ration. We know what we're going to get. We get the onions and the leeks and the melons and, don't forget them cucumbers, right? But freedom required that they had to trust God, not Pharaoh, but God. So they physically left Egypt, but Egypt had not left them. Then in Numbers 13 and 14, I'm not going to read it. It's when the spies are sent into Canaan, right? They arrive. They real close to the promised land. 12 spies go and scope the place out. They go and examine the land. 10 of them return, but their report is like rooted in fear. They're afraid. Joshua and Caleb are the ones that are like, we're going to trust the promises of God. But the people, they chose to believe the frightening report. Oh, they grumbled. They grumbled, got super rebellious. They were so desperate that they're like, give us a leader. We need somebody else. You, Joshua, no. Give us a new leader. They even talked about going back to Egypt. God delivers them from bondage, brings them to the edge of their inheritance, and they essentially said, we would rather go back. Oh, their problem wasn't that they didn't have sufficient evidence. Why? God gave them miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. Their problem was unbelief. When you read in Hebrews, it says that they were unable to enter because of unbelief. Do you know what happened to them? An entire generation just wandered for 40 years until they died. They died in the wilderness. And they didn't die. It wasn't because God forgot his promises. It wasn't because his GPS wasn't working and he didn't know, like, oh my goodness, how am I get them through? That wasn't it. God didn't forget the directions. They died because They were rebellious. They were stiff-necked. They didn't want to trust God enough to even enter it. This is what I see. When I look out at all of these middle age or post-middle age, the whole people in this crowd chanting justice for Nolan, this is not Gen Z. This is not Gen Alpha. These aren't even the majority millennials. These are mostly silent generations, some boomers, and some geriatric Gen Xers. That's who these people are. This is the spiritual condition that I saw reflected in this room. What I just described with the children of Israel, you have a racial grievance industry that has trained generations of Black Americans to remember Egypt way more vividly than they remember deliverance. Oh, they're going to remind you every day, oh, slavery. You know, slavery had happened. They weren't even alive to experience, but they're going to remind you of slavery happened. They're not going to remind you, like the children of Israel, of the blood on the doorposts and the sacrifices, right? They're not going to remind you of that. And in their instance, they don't think about the blood that was shed, the Black blood, and the freed Black men and the white men who fought and died. And who were they fighting? They were fighting Democrats to ensure that slavery ended. They don't talk about that. They want to remind you of the segregation and how that happened, but they're not going to permit you to celebrate all of the extraordinary opportunities, all of the accomplishments that are available to Black Americans today. There are no roadblocks in your way. None. But they're going to remind you that America once denied Black people their constitutional birthright. But these same stiff-necked people, these same rebellious ones will become furious when you tell Black Americans to stand upright, exercise your birthright, function in your freedom. No, they don't teach history as a testimony to God's provision and his faithfulness with human courage. No, they use history as a psychological chain. The message is never, look what the Lord has done. The message is always, look what white people are still doing to you. I told y'all where this came from. Remember, you're never satisfied. King told you, we will never be satisfied. So that means you're never delivered. You are never free. You never arrive. Forget the fact that God made you free. No. MLK told you, we won't be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. And if you know your scripture, that's the fulfillment of all things when Christ returns to take us home. So in other words, never. This side of heaven, nah, we ain't gonna never be satisfied. We're gonna keep begging, whining, crying, marching, demanding, looking to the government, taking your eyes off Christ, who's and the God of the Bible, who's the author and finisher of your faith. No, forget that. They don't want you focused on that. Pharaoh is always chasing behind you in a chariot. They coming. The plantation is always being rebuilt. You have a sitting congressman, one district over, talk about if you don't vote Democrat in November, you're going to be back picking cotton. And that man said it with a straight face. And then the furry, the little chubby furry with all the sexual nasty stuff on his computer, Roland Martin, he repeated it, talking about it's serious. We're going to be back picking cotton. Jim Crow is always returning. They keep forgetting to tell you that Jim Crow was an aberration of the Democrat. Like, those were Democrats. They don't want you to remember that. It's amazing to me. Jim Crow's always coming back. You always have to live with the fear that another lynching is right around the corner. You never know. They might just string you up on a tree right in front of your house and ain't nobody gonna do nothing. It's amazing though, because conveniently, the Democrat Party, NAACP, Ben Crump, Al Sharpton, all of them, they're the ones that must always stand between you and annihilation. Lord knows, what would we do without them? How would we survive if we didn't have the NAACP and the Democrats protecting us from the big old boogeyman white man? These men are not leading Black people out of Egypt. No. Their power depends upon convincing Black people that Egypt is everywhere. It's everywhere. They need a permanent Pharaoh. They need you out here singing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot till the day you die. They need a permanent wilderness. This is why the Black community looks the way it is. They're just wandering in permanent crisis. A permanent group of cowardly, frightened, and emotionally dependent people who will chant on cue when instructed. They will vote blue no matter who. And they will suspend all discernment whenever the racial script demands it. That's what we looked at. That is what we looked at. When this is what that is. You're never free. I'm surprised they didn't break out in a Negro spiritual after all of this. Take it in. Take in the silent generation, these baby boomers, and these geriatric Gen Xers that are going to die in the wilderness. Do not die with them. You don't need to wander in a circle, opining for the comforts of Egypt. You are free. Go and function in your freedom and leave these 2-bit race hustling jokers alone. I'm about done. But before I go, I'm going to say something. I'm tired of looking at I can't. No offense. Whoever's Mima that is, I pray that she see this and get free in Jesus. I really do hope that for her. But I'm going to say something that a lot of people are not going to like. We talked a little bit about the children of Israel. I used the analogy and the parallel with Rosewood and the Jerome Crow black lynch mob of today. And you're not going to like this, but legal slavery in America, it wasn't overthrown by this unified nationwide revolt of 4 million enslaved Black people. Like that didn't happen, right? I don't know if you knew. I don't see how you could know because I kind of had it up the whole film. I'm working on a documentary called Slavery as a Choice. And the reason why this film is so important is because out of 4 million enslaved people, this is hard to hear, but only those who are spiritually mature and emotionally resilient will get it and meditate on it. Out of 4 million people who were enslaved, you had few, in comparison to the 4 million, you had few resisted. You had some who escaped. You did have some who fought. You had some who served in the Union Army. You had those who took some extraordinary risk, also that they could secure freedom for themselves and others, such as your Harriet Tubman and all those that she ushered to freedom by way of the Underground Railroad. So this is why I can confidently say that slavery is a choice, because I just rattled off the list of people who chose freedom over the bonds of slavery. But in light of all of that, you need to understand and realize, settle with, forgive, cry, moan, rock in the corner, do whatever you got to do. There was no mass uprising that destroyed American slavery from within. That did not happen. This nation, on the other hand, ultimately fought itself a bloody civil war We had constitutional amendments that were adopted. And the legal institution of slavery was destroyed through military and governmental power. That deliverance came at an enormous cost. The bloodshed of black men and white men is invaluable. This is why I get angry when I see black people begging for reparations. I said, you don't know how much it costs and how much was paid. No, you didn't get a check in your bank account because you're not worthy to receive a check. It's stolen valor. You did nothing for the American inheritance and the American birthright that you squander every single day with your whining and your crying and your begging. And yet, more than a century and a half later, there remain black folks alive today who seem super emotionally attached to the identity of the slave than committed to the responsibilities of a free citizen. This is why I say slavery is a choice. Too many are choosing it today because they chose it back then. I know it's an uncomfortable truth. It hurts your feelings because I'm removing the scab. I'm removing all the excuses where you say it wasn't my fault. I couldn't help it. They was going to kill us. They threatened to do this. Legal freedom cannot liberate a person. And if you're determined to remain psychologically captive and enamored to that slave mentality, it doesn't care how many Emancipation Proclamations are given. It doesn't care how many reparations are paid. You can't present enough opportunities to help someone that is trained to interpret free agency as betrayal. Truth is not going to reach a person who prefers if you prefer the comfort of grievance, you'll never be satisfied. God can provide everything for you, no matter how many miracles you see, no matter how many miracles he performs. You'll never satisfy a person that is still fantasizing about Egypt's daggone cucumbers, melons, garlic, and onions. It's that simple. At some point, I know this message is hard and it is spicy and it is sharp. And you call me all kind of names. You Uncle Tom, you a bedwench. Listen, your names and accusations have no power here. You need to deal with the fact that at some point, adults have to become responsible for what they choose to believe. I'm not going to infantilize grown black men and women. I'm not going to do it. They are not children. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that they have no agency. I am not going to blame every destructive political decision on wasn't their fault because, they had been deceived or the system because, the system. I'm not doing that. Yes, people can be deceived and still be responsible for refusing correction. Yes, people can be manipulated and they're still responsible for surrendering their discernment. God is sovereign in all of this, but man is still responsible. Those two work hand in hand, and our 3-pound brains can't even imagine how those two work in perfect synergy. I know people can inherit a false narrative, but they're still responsible for clinging to that same false narrative after truth has been presented. The people in this room, they are not children. They are adults. And most of them have lived long enough to witness enormous social and political change. I told y'all they have access to the same information in the internet just like the rest of us. They could listen to the actual findings. They could ask whether or not the presentation matched the evidence, but instead, many of them appeared super ready to follow a familiar emotional script. Do not tell me that slavery is not a choice. They are making their choice. They are doing what 2 Timothy says, for a time will come When people are not going to endure sound teaching, but have itching ears, right? They're going to accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. And what ends up happening? They turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into silly myths. Behold the wandering. Behold the wandering. They've accumulated teachers to suit their passions. You get the leaders you deserve. They chose leaders who confirm what they already believe because of the hatred and unforgiveness in their hearts. And when victimhood becomes the core of your identity and the grievance merchants are super close by, the grievance merchant becomes your preferred teacher and you'll sit under his tutelage. That's why Ben Crump is useful. There is a big difference between truth and propaganda. Big difference. But you got to be people of the truth. You got to be people of the light. You got to want the truth. If these people were really advocating responsibly for truth, they'd be like, listen, we don't even know how Nolan Wells died. The independent autopsy is inconclusive. We're simply requesting the official report, the toxicology results, all of the retained specimens, the photographs, the investigative records, and then we're going to follow the evidence wherever it leads. And we ask that you keep this family in your prayers. That would have been responsible. That would have been something that would honor Nolan Wells. But responsible advocacy, it doesn't produce the same emotional spectacle, right? We don't know yet. It doesn't make a room erupt in applause and chants, right? And you don't get the racial martyr that you're looking for, right? The temperature of the room is not elevated. People are not on edge. They ain't sweating. You can't mobilize voters off a speech like that. The news anchors and the news and the TV stations, you don't get the same TV appearances when you're operating above board in truth. So you need the uncertainty. You need uncertainty seasoned with enough suspicion where ordinary forensic procedures got to be described as it's missing body parts, right? And unexplained discoloration on the back of the head, it's significant because it's significant before the scientific significance can be established. You just need to know it's significant, right? Preliminary report. It must be presented as though it has shattered the official narrative, even though nobody has seen, nor has the official report been released. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't believe this is a search for truth. These people are constructing a narrative versus having a maritime discussion. Like this is a maritime discussion where a young man may have drowned and we're just trying to put the pieces together and figure out what happened. So anyway, it's 10:20. I've been on here since 8:15. It's late. How many people is left? Y'all still here? The fact that y'all are still here is a testament to God's faithfulness. I'm gonna grab some super chats, and I'm trying to remember where I left off. Here we go. Oh wow. Let me see. I'm really behind. Here we go. Sergeant Smoopsy said, and Jesus wept. Amen. Thank you so much for that super chat. I appreciate your contribution tonight. We have another one from Ben Crump done rubbed off on me. Shirkia Bull? I don't know. But I'm black and slow. At least I admit it, right? I don't know. Let's see. We got another one. Thank you for your super chat too. David Gerald says, I am so happy Crump has no No public speaking ability or charisma, because he could do some serious damage if he did more. You know what? That is a very valid point. If he was more charismatic, super articulate, really winsome with his words, I mean, he's doing some serious damage just being at the bottom of the totem pole. Can you imagine if the man could actually read? Whoo! Listen, we'd be out here working super hard to counteract his foolishness. You are right. Thank you so much for that super chat. Elder Malik Abdul Muhammad says, send Ben the child's book, green eggs and ham. That's too many words on the page. Malik, now you know. No, it's too much alliteration. It's too repetitive. He still ain't gonna get it. That's we gotta start him with the McGuffey primer. See? When but no, I got a McGuffey primer out there. That's how I taught my kids to read. We got to take him back to the basics. Yeah. Thank you for your super chat. Hey, Sister Amethyst. She said, I pray the parents aren't complicit. I think they're so bereaved that they believed the lies from the serpent's forked, psychologically manipulative speech, run over by racist ambulance chasers. You know, I'm going to be honest. I think the father knows. Now, I don't know if this is Nolan's biological father because they're Wansleys and he's a Wells. Men, 9 times out of 10, can spot the BS, and they know at this point he's probably going along with it because of her. I believe the father knows. I believe the father can see that they're being exploited and used, but the trap of riches and the fame and the notoriety, which the father doesn't strike me as someone who'd be attracted to that. Sadly, no shade. The mama does, my opinion. I think he's kind of just going along with it. Like I said in one of my other videos where I covered this, it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow. Give it 24 months. They're going to see. She's probably going to write a book. It's probably going to be a film. One or two things are going to happen. Either they're going to continue and perpetuate the lie because it's profitable, or they're going to exploit the fact that it was a lie because it's profitable. Well, either way, they're going to win. Right? Either way, they're going to win. Tell us about last night, April. Look. I am that mama. Yes, I was sitting at the pickleball court waiting for my son to finish playing pickleball in the rain. The boy wanted to play pickleball, so I was in mommy mode. So that's where I was last night. And that's why I didn't go live. So you're getting a Thursday live stream. Hey Henry, what's going on? Brandon, who is Nolan Allen? Oh, Father. Long story. We meant to cut that out. Henry sending all these personal jokes. I can't focus. They don't know the context of these jokes, Henry. They don't know. Love your content, April. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your super chat and for your support to this platform tonight. You guys are amazing. Thank you for sticking in there with me. I know I'm long-winded, but when I get going, I get going. Night Mover says, hi, April. So right. They are despicable. It is sickening to watch. And I felt just awful for the friend Warren. Couldn't even go to his brother's funeral. So sad. That's what they wanted. You know, I had a feeling that they would, the tensions that the social justician crowd have artificially manufactured tells me that they're not interested in racial unity on the basis of this is a tight, like this boating community is very tight knit. And I believe that unfortunately, this community in Mississippi happens to be the next recipient of Jerome Crow politics. And maybe one day I'll get the opportunity to interview the DA or the sheriff or some of the individuals involved in this case, I'd be curious to hear their perspective of how this made them feel. And I wouldn't be surprised if racial animus and division that wasn't there before, if it's there now, you literally have to guard your heart and pray to the Father to have him remove that from you because of the works of the devil, these demonic people that are trying to separate us, trying to come between the unity and the bond of peace that believers have. But here's the hope that I would leave for you. What can separate us from the love? Nothing can separate us. Okay, I mean, I know this is a secular human analogy, but like Nettie and Silly, me and you, look, the body of Christ, nothing can separate us. I don't care what racial hoaxes they put on us and attempt to divide. It's not going to work. If you stay tethered to the scriptures and you abide in the vine and you cling to Christ, it's not going to make its way through. That the bond and the reconciliation that we have with God and one another is in, look, let me explain to you how you can't break it. Y'all listen to this. Okay. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. I'm reading from 1 Peter 1, starting in verse 3. According to his great mercy. Y'all. I ain't charismatic, but I might shout. He has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And look what he has caused us to be born again to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading. And look where it's kept, y'all. Kept in heaven for you, who by God's power, whose power? God's power, are being guarded through the faith for a salvation ready to be revealed at the last time. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials. Why? Here's the reason. So that the tested genuineness of our faith, your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Y'all, our salvation is imperishable, undefiled, unfading, kept in heaven for you. If you are in Christ, the seal of the Holy Spirit is securing your future inheritance. And if that is true, and if you're in Christ and I'm in Christ, that means the bond that we have is as impermeable as the bond of our salvation. It is imperishable, undefiled, unfading, kept in heaven for you, and it ain't even by your own merit. It's by God's power that is being guarded. So these attacks, these divisions, let them come. Who can separate us? No one can separate us. If you don't cling to nothing other than that, that's all I need. I don't know about you, but that's all I need. I'm good. So let me finish these two. I just had to read that. I don't know. I just had to read that. Thank you, Michael Armstrong, for your generous super chat. He says, people who speak of reparations, you better come on through here with that truth, are lazy. is for suckers. Socialism is for suckers. Cries for reparation is for suckers. Yes, they are lazy. And they want a handout for work they didn't do because they suckers and they lazy, Michael. He says, like the great pumpkin is coming. Charlie Brown, I absolutely love you. And I love this comment, Michael. I agree. They are lazy. It is unchristian. I'm going to go as far as saying that. It is unchristian. And it's a slap in the face to all of the soldiers of the 54th Massachusetts, those freed Black Republican men who shed their blood and joined the Union Army because too many of the slaves was down here in the South digging the ramparts and the ditches for the Confederates. Don't tell me slavery is not a choice. That is true. That's a historical fact. And we are still out here laboring and sacrificing our personal reputations, our private lives to get you Negroes off the plantation, and you still won't leave. You think I'm out here because I ain't got nothing else better to do? I'm trying to wake you up. I'm coming with my sword and the bayonet to the Democrat plantation to come and free you, and you're whining and crying, holding on to your master, and you won't let him go. What am I supposed to do with that? What do you expect me to do with that? Slavery is a choice. That's where you want to be. So stay over there, get in the corner, grovel and cry on your knees, and you accept whatever crumbs fall from the master's table. Because at this point, if the hold on. Let me read y'all this. Y'all need, look, you about to get educated tonight. You need to read this. Read what Frederick Douglass said. A man without force is without the essential dignity of humanity. Basically, if you ain't really ready to fight and be about that life, you don't even have human dignity. He then goes on. Human nature is so constituted that it cannot honor a helpless man, although it can pity him. And even this, it cannot do long. If the signs of power do not arise. Basically, when I exegete this, Frederick Douglass is like, look, you could be a coward and be weak and whiny and cry and be on your knees begging for your mama and hoping that the white man leave you alone. Or because of the human nature, if the signs of power do not arise from within, all we can do is pity you. And even that is going to wear out sooner or later. We're going to be like, look, you. Like I said, y'all ain't going to like this, but brace yourself. You are not oppressed because you are Black. You are oppressed because you're weak. You need to meditate and chew on that for a little bit. It hurt. It stings. Your heart is racing right now. You're calling me all kinds of names. I don't care. You need to sit and meditate on that and deal with it, because a former slave just told you that you were weak and you were coward if the signs of power do not arise. A man without force is without the essential dignity of humanity. So you going to whine and cry and beg for the government to come save you, or you going to go out and function in your freedom and be a man? It is your choice. Pick one and then govern yourself accordingly. My girl left another one. Hold on. In man's eyes, I'm lightly melanated. All Jesus sees is red because I'm covered by his blood. If you're a believer, come on, sis, your flesh is moot. This is what the social justician, racial grievance crowd, they don't understand, and how I don't even understand, if you call yourself a Christian, how you can't see this. everything from the social, the pro-wokety woke, blackety black crowd is an emphasis and the focus on the flesh. It's all flesh. We as believers, we walk by the Spirit, and so that we don't fulfill and gratify the lust of the flesh. Do not think that the lust of the flesh is just the physical or some sort of sexual connotation. Always being obsessed, hyper-focused on your blackness, that's the flesh. Always focus and hyper-focus on the whiteness, that is the flesh. All of it's of the flesh. Sis is right. At the end of the day, you and your sinful, wicked flesh are going to stand before a righteous and holy God, and you're going to have to give an account. And he's not going to ask you, well, what did the white man do to you again? And he's not going to ask the white man, what did the black man do to you again? He's going to say, what have you done? You're going to have to give an account for your wickedness and your sinful deeds unless you are clothed in the righteousness of Christ. And the only way that's going to happen is you have to repent of your sin and place your faith in Christ alone. Those are your only options. You're either in Adam or you are in Christ. There is no neutrality here. So what the race hustlers have you out here doing, being all ethnically narcissistic and focused on the melanin and the whiteness and all the cats, listen, it's of the flesh. If you were in Christ, you should be putting this off. We are one branch grafted in to one new branch through the spirit of adoption. That's all that matters. Don't fall for the okie doke. It's that simple. Listen, y'all, I'm tired. Okay, I'm dehydrated. It's almost 11 o'clock. Listen, it's time to say goodbye. I've loved and enjoyed hanging out with you, but I'm tired and my mouth is dry and I didn't bring my lip gloss. I don't know where it is, but I gotta go. Listen, what is tomorrow? What is today? Is today Thursday or Wednesday? I think today's Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, Lord willing. Lord willing, I might go live. I don't know. I've got a busy day ahead. I'm not quite sure. But I love you guys with the love of the Lord. And until next time, y'all stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. I'm April Chapman.
And I'm Vince Everett Ellison. There's a victim narrative here in the United States of America that says you have no control over your lives, no control over your agency. And they're basically saying that you're an animal, that you're a slave. I don't believe that. I don't think it's ever been the case. As an heir of Jesus Christ, and as a child of God, I cannot be oppressed. I cannot be a victim. I do not think I am, nor do I think that any American ever has been, or any person. Even when it comes to slavery, I believe, and I think they will hold true, that slavery was a choice. You know why I know? Because people are choosing to be slaves now. So I'm making a documentary to debunk the myth that any human being or any American is held under bondage without their permission, even if they have to kill or give their lives to be free. Freedom is a choice, and slavery is a choice also.
We're asking you to partner with us. We are here. We have begun filming Slavery is a Choice, and it's an incredible documentary that outlines Vince's argument to prove to the world that slavery is absolutely a choice. I've partnered with him in the executive producer position, and we are appealing to our audience, you guys, those who watch us faithfully every single week, to help us bring this film to market. We've begun a crowdfunding campaign, and we're going to link the opportunity in the description below for you to partner with us and give any amount to help us bring this project to market. Slavery is absolutely a choice, and we know that slavery is a choice because we're choosing it today with many of the decisions that we continue to make to our own detriment. So we're hoping that you guys will partner with us, and we want to bring this film to market in summer of 2026. So click the link down below. And I'm April Chapman.
And I'm Bishop Everett Ellison. Freedom is a choice, but in order to be free, you must be brave. In order to not be a slave, you must believe in Jesus Christ. So believe in freedom, believe in courage, be courageous, assist us in this project, and let's set and make other people free by being true blue Americans, true blue patriots, true blue Christians, believing in ourselves and believing in the future ahead. Thank you.